My name is Harper Johnson, and I'm 33 years old. I learned early that my father measured love the way he measured worth, by inheritance lines, last names, and what could be passed down without interruption. The moment my daughter was born, that ruler slammed against my knuckles and left a mark that never faded, because to him, she was a dead end. A phrase he once dropped casually at a family dinner, with the same cruelty someone might use to comment on the weather. I swallowed my anger then, like I always did. But that night, on his birthday, everything changed. The invitation arrived like a verdict slipped under my door, black letters on crisp white cardstock. Short, sharp, and final. Heirs only. No dead ends. Don't bring your daughter. As if my child were a stain to be wiped from the room. As if I were still the girl who would bend to keep the peace. I stood in my kitchen, rereading it while my daughter colored at the table, humming softly, blissfully unaware that her grandfather had decided she didn't qualify as family. And in that moment, I felt the old pull, the urge to go anyway, apologize for existing, make it easier for him. But something inside me finally refused to kneel. That night, I texted him. Calm, clear, I won't attend if my daughter isn't welcome. His reply came fast, sharp, good. We don't need your drama. The words hit with the weight of years of being told I was too loud, too sensitive, too much, never enough of the right kind. I didn't cry. I cooked dinner, tucked my daughter into bed, and sat alone with a truth I'd held in silence for too long. The door he kept closing was no longer mine to knock on. 2 days passed, and with them came a strange quiet in my chest, the kind that settles when you choose yourself and the world doesn't end. While he prepared white tablecloths, polished glasses, and a guest list trimmed of anything inconvenient, I went about my life. I answered emails, made calls, followed through on plans that didn't require me to shrink. The irony was that he always thought my strength was borrowed, that anything I achieved was luck or a favor. He could never see it as the product of nights I worked while others slept, decisions made without applause, resilience learned the hard way. I let him think that because arguing with a man committed to misunderstanding you is a losing sport. Still, the words on the invitation echoed, heirs only. No dead ends. As if lineage were a straight road, not a messy map of love. I wondered how someone could celebrate life while pretending a child didn't count. On the night of his dinner, the city pulsed with its usual energy. Downtown, a restaurant prepared its finest table, candles aligned, menus pressed, a birthday arranged like a performance. I imagined him arriving, posture set to command attention, expecting nods, handshakes, obedience. I felt no urge to interrupt that script, because for once, I wasn't part of it. When my phone buzzed with a message from an aunt asking if I'd changed my mind, I typed back a polite no and set it face down. I chose presence over provocation, my daughter's laughter over a seat bought with silence. I thought about how often women are asked to trade dignity for belonging, how family can become a club with arbitrary rules, and how heirs only can be weaponized to exclude anyone inconvenient. My father always said legacy was everything, but true legacy is protecting the vulnerable, widening the table instead of guarding it. Whatever happened that night, whatever story he told himself about my absence, the truth was simple. I hadn't refused an invitation, I refused erasure. As the hours passed, I tucked my daughter in after a bad dream, smoothed her hair, and promised her she belonged everywhere she stood. And when she finally slept, I sat with that promise, unaware of what was coming. The moment the script he'd written collided with a reality he hadn't planned for, the moment his words heirs only, no dead ends would echo back in a way he never expected. By the time my father walked into the restaurant, the story he thought he controlled was already collapsing. He expected a room arranged around his authority, but inside, reality had another plan, truth. We were already there. My daughter sat beside me, legs swinging gently under the table, hands folded like she was trying to look grown up. I thought how absurd it was that anyone could call this bright, breathing child a dead end. We were seated at the best table, not hidden, not apologetic, but intentionally placed. Across from us sat the governor, mid-conversation, relaxed, engaged, fully aware of who we were and why we mattered. When my father stepped in, he froze. I saw it from across the room, the hitch in his stride, the stiffening of his shoulders, the way his eyes locked on us as if he'd entered a world where his rules no longer applied. 2 days earlier, his birthday invite said, heirs only. Don't bring your daughter. When I declined, he snapped, "Good. We don't need your drama." Now here I was, not a guest begging for inclusion, but a woman whose presence required no permission. The room shifted. Attention gravitates toward moments that matter, and this one did. He took step after uncertain step, confidence recalibrating too slowly, calculations behind his eyes. Who invited her? Why is she here? Why there? The waiter guided him to the table he'd reserved, unaware of the emotional earthquake unfolding. A table that suddenly felt smaller, less important, like a prop abandoned when the spotlight moved. I exchanged a glance with my father. In it were years of withheld approval, years of proving that my worth didn't depend on his definitions. My daughter smiled at me, the effortless smile of someone who knows she belongs. It steadied me more than any speech could. When the governor noticed my father hovering, he stood, extended his hand, and introduced himself with effortless authority. My father's mouth opened and closed, soundless, as the hierarchy he believed in inverted in front of him. The governor spoke warmly about community, leadership, and a future shaped by people willing to expand opportunity rather than guard it. Then he asked my daughter her name, her interests, and listened to her with genuine attention. My father watched as the world treated her not as a footnote, but as the point. In that moment, he realized legacy isn't inherited by exclusion. Heirs only is brittle when confronted with influence. Calling someone a dead end doesn't make it true. The governor thanked me publicly for my work and commitment, rewriting the narrative my father had told himself for years. Conversation resumed. Laughter filled the room. My father lingered, caught between approaching and retreating, pride and shame, past and present. Eventually, he sat at his table. Candles lit. Cake arrived. But the celebration felt muted, as if the room had shifted its center of gravity. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The power of that night was in clarity. When my father finally spoke to me, his voice was quieter, tentative. He glanced at my daughter, then back at me. No apology, not yet, but a crack where certainty had been. He asked how we were, how long we'd stay. I answered politely, honestly, without offering absolution I hadn't been asked for. When we left, my daughter squeezed my hand. "The dinner was fancy and nice," she whispered. I laughed, because she was right, but not for the reasons anyone expected. Outside, the night air felt lighter. I understood that the moment my father froze wasn't when he saw us at the table or when the governor introduced himself. It was when he realized the story he wrote to diminish us had failed, that the future doesn't belong to gatekeepers, and that love, when recognized, renders old rules irrelevant. If this story moved you, if you believe worth isn't decided by outdated labels like heirs only or cruel phrases like dead ends, and if you want more stories where dignity wins, strength speaks, and silence is broken, subscribe now and stay with us for what comes next.